Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. This whole week, I've been talking about Neville Goddard and awakened imagination. What is it that you really desire? What state of being are you putting yourself into? Are you noticing what's missing? Are you complaining about your life and what you have or don't have? Or are you speaking what you want? Are you thinking about, writing about, talking about what you desire as if it's real, if it's true? Because, as Florence Scovel Shinn said, your word is your wand. What you speak about, you bring about. Most people use their words against themselves. I still do that. But I spent most of my life talking about how life is so hard and everything is so challenging and it's so hard to earn money and make a living. It's so hard to, and that's what I brought into my life. We don't, when we're speaking about what exists, we're bringing more of that into our future. We're bringing more of that into our real experience, our reality. So think about the things that you say to yourself and about yourself. Notice that a person who is really self-confident, they don't talk about how hard things are. They don't talk about how life sucks. They just speak about wonderful things. It's not that their life has been handed to them on a silver platter. They probably work very hard, but they expect good things and they talk about good things and they create good things. It comes from within. What you think, what you feel, and the actions that you take create your life. Bob Proctor would say, all things are possible if the motivation is strong enough. And he would ask people, what do you really want? And he said, a lot of people said, I don't know what I want. He said, I think you do know, you're just afraid to admit it. Maybe you think that what you really want is too much, it's too big, it's impossible. Well, when you think it's too big, too much, impossible, what you talk about, you bring about. If you really want something, but you think it's going to take a long time, or you talk about it being hard, that's what you will experience. You would say, it just, he would say, take a piece of paper and write down what you would like to be or to do or to have. Now, the key was not think about how you would achieve it, but write as if you had a magic wand and you could make anything appear. It didn't matter how crazy your desires were, just write it out. That's simple, right? If you have a pen and paper, you could think about something that you really want. Maybe it's a new car, a new home, the love of your life, a different job, money coming easily into your bank account, or the time freedom to enjoy it. Write something down and write it down in the present tense as if it's here now. Bob Proctor would hand out goal cards and they said, I'm so happy and grateful now that, so that whatever you desired, you would write it down as if it was your current real experience. that sound pretty simple. But I discovered it really wasn't that simple because each of us gets in our own way. We tend to sabotage our own results. And I wrote down things that I felt were way too much, way too big. They sounded ridiculous. Yeah, that would be for somebody else, but not for me, because my paradigm would immediately kick in, telling me that I wasn't worthy of all that. I didn't deserve it. I didn't know how that was going to happen. And I was embarrassed because even though I was the only one seeing what I was writing, it just felt like, well, that's impossible. If I knew how to do that, I'd already be doing it. I was already 58 years old at the time. And well, shouldn't I know how to do that already? I'm already close to retirement. Do you think that if I knew how to do that, I would have already done that? Bob Proctor would say, it's simple, but it's not easy. Bob Proctor would have goal achieving seminars, and he would say, this exercise, well, I found it very challenging. A lot of the people in the room were writing it down and experiencing all kinds of wonderful things, but my goal didn't come true. So I was like, well, why? Bob Proctor said most people go to point B to from point A to point B by default. Either they're doing what someone else wants for them, or they're making choices to make someone else happy. Deciding what we want and staying focused on the vision is the biggest hurdle that most of us face in our lives. Bob Proctor had a partner, Sandy Gallagher, and she wrote in teeny tiny writing in her book, I want to be Bob Proctor's partner, his closest advisor, helping him run his companies. And she said she slammed the book shut because she didn't want anyone to see that. She thought it was ridiculous. She was a Wall Street lawyer at the time, merging banks. And that was her first time at a Bob Proctor seminar. And she thought, I don't really even know who this guy is, and I'm going to be his closest advisor. That sounded pretty ridiculous. But that's what happened. They became partners. And after Bob Proctor passed away at the age of 87, she took over the Proctor Gallagher Institute. And she talks about writing down a goal and visioneering it, bringing it into your mind so clearly, so real, that when you open your eyes, it seems like, well, how is it not here yet? You get emotionally involved. Now, it doesn't happen by waving a magic wand and having it appear in front of you. You will have to do some work. You will have to change the way you speak to yourself and about yourself. You'll have to allow yourself to relax so that new thoughts, new ideas, big, bold, beautiful ideas will start to come into your mind to match the vision that you have. When you have a vision for your life, something that you really want, you are responsible for bringing it into reality. It's not going to appear when you speak about how long it's going to take, how hard it's going to be. It's not here yet. You must take responsibility for your actions, because what you think about, you bring about. What you talk about the most, the energy that you're in, the things that you do produce the outcome. So you want to create a new outcome. You have to start with, what is the vision? What is the goal? What do I really, really, really want? How would my life change if I was that person, if I had that outcome? It takes accepting responsibility for your outcome, accepting responsibility that all of your results are in your life because of what you've previously thought, felt, and acted upon. So I'm going to read a little article called Responsibility that Bob Proctor wrote, and it's in the Thinking into Results Participants Guidebook that I use in my teachings. Responsibility is a choice, and it truly is the key to freedom. Your future can be everything you have ever dreamed about and then some. You have the talent and tools to experience one beautiful day after another. That is, in fact, what the architect of the universe had in mind for you when you were created. If that was not so, you would never have been endowed with such awesome powers. Bob Proctor had a good friend and mentor, Leland Val Vanderwall, and he wrote, "When a person takes responsibility for their life and the results they are obtaining, they will cease to blame others as the cause of their results. Since you cannot change other people, blame is inappropriate. Blaming others causes a person to remain bound in a prison of their own making. When you take responsibility, blame is eliminated and you are free to grow. Those who haven't taken responsibility for their results and their life often find themselves in a mental prison. And in many ways, a mental prison is a much worse place to live than a federal penitentiary or prison. Mental torment can destroy just about everything that is necessary for a meaningful life. Mental torment can destroy self-image, self-respect, relationships, and a host of other attributes. It will even cause a person's physical health to deteriorate. Responsibility opens the door and permits you to walk into freedom. If you find yourself confined to such a mental state, understand there is a way out. Escape is encouraged and possible. The master key that fits the lock is clearly marked, and it is within everyone's reach. It is responsibility. It would be a fair comment to say that the people we have the greatest respect for are those who have accepted responsibility for every aspect of their lives. These individuals rarely duck responsibility by blaming someone else. When faced with an unfavorable situation, they are usually aware they have attracted the negative circumstance and know everything happens for a reason. When this happens, they merely learn their lesson and keep reaching out above and beyond to the new frontier, taking responsibility for whatever happens every step of the way. When a person refuses to accept responsibility for their life, they reject their uniqueness and they turn all their power over to other people, other situations, or circumstances. You find yourself looking outwards at your circumstances and blaming other people. How would your life change if you took responsibility? If you said, whatever great is in your life, I did that. And whatever challenge you're facing, I did that. And then you could change it. When you turn your power over to other people, situations, or circumstances, then you're no longer in control of your future. Bob Proctor writes, they will be hoping something good will happen, but because of past experiences, they very likely will be expecting something they do not want to happen. When you accept responsibility for your life and for the results, which you alone determine, you will develop confidence that your dreams can be realized, that your plans can be carried out. Awareness of this magnificent truth is one of the greatest, if not the greatest thing that can happen in your life. It's Aladdin's lamp, a magic wand, and the tooth fairy all wrapped up in one. Dr. Rollo May, a distinguished psychiatrist, once wrote, the opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. It requires great courage to take responsibility for your life. It's so much easier to blame someone else or something outside of yourself. George Bernard Shaw said, people who are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, they make them. Shaw was right. Those who win big in life take responsibility and they create their own reality. Earlier on, it was suggested that responsibility brings with it a certain amount of freedom. For some people, these last few paragraphs may be life-altering. With the proper understanding, it has the power to free you from unnecessary mental weight that you've been carrying around with you all of your life. Guaranteed. This concept has been so misunderstood by so many, and it's probably single-handedly ruined more lives than one can possibly imagine. Ignorance of this principle will most certainly cause a person to experience the destructive emotions of anger, guilt, and resentment. Here it is. There is a vast difference between being responsible for and being responsible to. It seems so simple, but don't let its apparent simplicity fool you. There is a big difference between being responsible for and being responsible to. It's not uncommon to hear parents blame themselves and assume responsibility for something that has happened to their child, and that child might be 40 years old. You know, my mom is still blaming herself for my brother's antics, and he's almost 65 years old. You might say, if only we, or I should have. Far too often, we inappropriately assume responsibility for something when, in fact, our real duty to the person may have ended 20 years ago. Unfortunately, for most, they carry that baggage around with them for life, realizing they have a choice. The correct interpretation of this is you are responsible for your feelings and your results, not another person's. You may be responsible to another person for one thing or another, but not for another person. The exception, of course, is when you choose to take on the responsibility of raising children, but only until they reach the age of majority. You're not responsible for another person if they are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. You are responsible to and for your children until such time as they become responsible for themselves. If they're adults, your responsibility for their actions is done. They're responsible for their own lives now. At times, it might be appealing to contemplate having another person take on our responsibilities for us. We could even trick ourselves into believing that by doing this, we would be more free to play, have fun, and do the things that we want. Without serious thought, it might never enter our mind that exactly the opposite would happen. When you permit others to take on your responsibilities, you become dependent on them. They become the giver and you become the receiver. Your well-being then is dependent upon their generosity. Hopefully, at some point, it will become very clear that this kind of behavior only leads to a life of lack, limitation, resentment, and confusion on the parts of both the giver and the receiver. Nothing positive comes from the misuse of responsibility. When you take on the responsibility for another person's feelings, another person's results or actions, you destroy their self-reliance and self-respect. Think about that. You are responsible for all the results in your life. You are responsible for your happiness. You are responsible for your health. You are responsible for your wealth. You are responsible for your emotional state. If you hear yourself saying, "He makes me so mad," or "I would do that, but that person is doing this," Bob Proctor says, regardless of what has happened in the past, the future lies ahead with an open slate, waiting for you to take control and create a wonderful life for yourself. Winston Churchill, who certainly knew something about responsibility, said, "Responsibility is the price of greatness." Here's a marvelous affirmation that you can verbalize every night before you go to sleep and every morning as you step out of bed. I am responsible for my life, for my feelings, for my personal growth, and for every result I get. You might want to grab that pen and paper and write that down. I am responsible. I am responsible for my life. I am responsible for my feelings. I am responsible for my personal growth. I am responsible for every result I get. When I first read that, that shook me to the core. I grew up thinking that it was common, usual, even good to place blame where where I thought it was responsible. That guy was responsible for my feelings. That person was responsible for holding me back. That situation was the reason I couldn't do something. When you accept responsibility for everything in your life, all the good, all the bad, everything you want, and everything that's shown up that you don't want, that means you can change it. You can decide, what do I really want? And when you take the time to get clear on a vision, get clear on what you want, and you start writing about it, you start talking about it, you start thinking about it, pretty soon you start acting as if you already are that person. And then everything follows. Everything you think and speak and do creates your reality. You are responsible for your feelings. You are responsible for your results. That means you can take responsibility and create your own destiny. Write about it. Put into words what you would love to be, to do, to have. And sit calmly and imagine yourself already in that place, already that version of your life. It's inside of you. Bring it out. Accept the responsibility that you are continually creating your results. What would you love? Think from the goal already attained. Create a wonderful day. Practice this over the weekend. Where are you giving responsibility to another person for the way you feel, the way you think, the things that you do? Take back your power. Create what you truly desire. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you back here Monday morning at 7. Thank you.